Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson.
And I'm Chris Empey.
And this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Guys, we got another killer sale going on over at Duramax Tuner Calibrated Power. You're going to want to check it out. 10% off custom tuning right now, Chris.
Pretty much all multi-packs. So switch on the fly, Easy Link EFI, MM3, or multi or switch on the fly. So. Yeah.
So awesome that's going on throughout the month of April. Make sure to check that out. Of course, if you're checking that out, you're probably going to want to upgrade some other stuff under the hood. That's going to include some parts, of course, from WC Fab.
Yeah. Or Extra G Performance.
Absolutely.
Maybe some WC Fab piping and some Extra G injectors.
I love it.
You know, a little bit of pairing.
That's a good setup.
You're
you're on the right path if that's what we're talking about. You're going to have to round that off with some accessories, and we suggest you stop over to xdp.com to get those. For today, though, Chris, now that we got paying the bills out of the way,
I'm really pumped. You know, Paul, just when we first started talking about this, we were grouping biodiesel as biodiesel.
Sure.
And little did we know, we didn't know shit.
I literally, in my head, I was like, well, I see the thing at the pump that says like up to 5%
Yeah,
biodiesel,
10%, 9%, whatever.
It is. I just thought in my head, though, I was like, yeah, but that's not the biodiesel I'm talking about.
No.
This is diesel. This is pump diesel. And then biodiesel is something weirdos do in a 55-gallon jug behind the shed.
Yep.
Which we have found out.
There's a lot of different options for those weirdos with 55-gallon drums. And we've learned at this point everything from wild to mild, everything in between, because what I thought biodiesel was and what biodiesel is and what WVO is, all different classifications or options, I guess you could say, for fuel sources to run in a diesel engine.
You know, I suppose it's for like people who don't listen to this show and they're like, so you guys just talk about trucks.
Yeah.
Do you ever get this where you tell somebody you work at a diesel performance company and they're like, oh, you work with semis?
No, like, oh, you're a mechanic, you don't want to trust me with tools.
So I get both of those where I'm like, I mean, we do a little bit. Yeah, so I feel like we came into this as just total newbies, and it's been so much fun learning about it.
And nonetheless, we have a gentleman today, Brandon Lawson.
Brandon Lawson. Brandon Lawson, we wanted to round this off, so we had somebody that was kind of like on the industrial side. If you had a
manufacturing
good chunk of money,
hardware and tooling,
you could buy like a kit that, you're DIYing, but you pretty much just
professional
add and
kit.
Go. It is. It's legit. And then we talked to somebody who really I felt was the head of the DIY market, whatever exists of that, when we talked with Graydon. And then this week we want to get somebody who's like used it in the real
trenches,
world.
In the trenches, grinding it out. And little did we know how in the trenches he was. I think we need to just spin it to the interview because some of the advice that he gives us at the end is pretty mind-blowing, to say the least.
That's right. Check it out right here. Hey folks, it's time for our favorite part of the show where we get to talk to an expert about their expertise, and today we are not short on knowledge.
Yeah.
That's certainly true. We have on Brandon Lawson, who has 16 years experience using waste vegetable oil to run diesel engines out in the real world. Brandon, how the hell are you?
Good, guys. How you guys doing?
Great.
I'm excited because I group everything non-diesel as biodiesel, and as Paul and I were getting into this, Paul's like, no, this is WVO, this is different. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, so, I'm willing to learn.
Also things I did not know 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So like this has definitely been a big learning experience for us. I certainly know a lot of the feedback we've got from our fans is this is a great learning experience for you guys as well. Yep. Brandon, can you give us just like a quick rundown? What is the difference between waste vegetable oil and biodiesel that maybe we see like 5 to 20% of in our fuel at the pump?
When you're making biodiesel, the difference between them both is you're actually pulling like the free fatty lipids out of the oil. So I used to make biodiesel myself, I would take the vegetable oil. You'd have to separate the water from it first by boiling it basically to get the water that's suspended in the oil out. And then you would go through tritation, which would tell you, which is basically a test to see exactly what chemical process you need to do to separate the bio from the glycerin. The glycerin is basically your byproduct of the biodiesel process if it's done correctly. I mean, you can really screw it up completely, and then you end up with like soap. I mean, that's basically what you get, is soap and some stinky smelling napalm like stuff basically. But So what you do is you mix, it comes up to the chemical of methyl hydroxide. It's methanol and sodium or potassium hydroxide. And you'll end up mix them up after you do tritation to find out exactly how much volume that you need to do of that chemical per volume of waste vegetable oil that you have. It's quite a process, guys. It's a huge process. And even if you have like the machines to do it, you better have your chemistry spot on to do it right. Otherwise, you'll get frustrated as hell just fighting it. And every batch of oil that you guys get is going to be totally different, unless you've got a good supplier that, you know, never has any water in their oil, or, you know, just junk in their oil. It's got to be good, clear soy oil too. That's the best too. I mean, you can use like the creamy stuff, you can, but it just seems like it doesn't do it as good. You want clear soy oil. So when you go along and you do the process and you mix the methyl hydroxide in with your vegetable oil, you warm it and you keep it mixing and mixing and mixing and mixing, and then it settles. And when it settles, if it does it correctly, you'll have two different layers. You'll have your biodiesel on top because it's lighter, and you'll have your glycerin on top, on the bottom. So then you use like a funnel tank, kind of like taking like a vinegar type jug, you know, but a lot larger. You know, I used to use 200-gallon tanks. Put them upside down so the funnel goes to the bottom, and you would drain off your glycerin till you get to that biodiesel level. So I would do like 200 gallons, and I would get, well, maybe in the 150 range of actual biodiesel after the glycerin.
Okay.
So then what I would do is I would take the glycerin and mix it with distilled water, and it's crazy, guys, but it makes heavy duty degreaser. That's what it makes. So then you take your biodiesel that you have in there, you mix it with distilled water. It sounds crazy. It's called bubble washing. And you polish your diesel. You put an air stone down in the bottom of the tank, like an aquarium air stone, and you add the exact volume of water with the exact volume of biodiesel. So if you have 100 gallons, you put 100 gallons of water in to 100 gallons of diesel. It will separate completely. Oil's lighter than water. So you put that bubble stone down at the bottom of the tank, and as those little bubbles come up through the water, they collect a very, very small film as it passes through the oil level. And when it goes to the top, it pops. And that water comes right back down through that water, washing it. And your water will turn snow white. And what it's doing is it's getting all the, it's soapification is basically what it is. And you could do that in as much time. And I could get biodiesel to look like, almost like apple cider, you know, just, it would look immaculate, just beautiful. It performs the same as diesel. I would get pretty much the same miles per gallon with it. And I use it in all sorts of vehicles. I got a 95 Isuzu 4-cylinder turbo diesel. It's my work truck. I use it in it. It's Old Faithful, guys, man. That thing just won't die at all. That thing is, I put that thing to the ringer, man. But I've got that. I've had 3 Powerstrokes now, 7.3s. I run it through. Now that's the biodiesel. So then I got away from doing the biodiesel. It just became such a pain in the butt, man. Just to
Brandon.
Yeah.
Yes, on let's say 150 gallons of bio, like you're talking to us about it, and it sounds like it's a process. Like this isn't,
that's what everybody told us.
Yeah,
like
a half hour, 45-minute ordeal.
Nuts.
So to do that process and to do the stone wash, the polishing of the fuel, all that, what's that process out of 200 gallons to 150 gallons of fuel to where it's ready to pump into a vehicle? How much time?
You could do that in a day.
In a day, okay. Now I'm going to assume you have a good source of that oil, right, of the veggie oil to be able to do this with. But to do that process in a day, what kind of dollar and cents is that to invest into making 150 gallons of diesel or biodiesel?
Yeah, how much equipment cost am I looking at if my time is free?
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, and in a situation like that, guys, it's there's 2 avenues you can take there. I made everything myself. I just did it all myself, and I like to fiddle around things, and make things and all that kind of stuff. So I built everything myself, and it was a lot of trial and error. You can buy the processors, and spend a couple $1,000s for all the stuff. It's just tanks, a pump, a heater. I mean, you can use a hot water heater is what I used. The real cost really actually comes into the methanol. The methanol is expensive, and to have a place where you can get it. Yeah. My buddy, he drives race cars. He used to do the like dirt track type stuff, the modified dirt track. Well, he also did like the midgets, and one of his little midget cars had like a 600 crotch rocket engine in it that ran on methanol. So I had like an absolute great supply of methanol. I would just get it through him and utilize that. There's other ways where you can use like a condenser to condense off the excess methanol when you do the process to try and save on cost. But I mean, that's where I'm getting at with the point. It's like, it became such a headache, honestly, of doing all of it and trying to get everything put together to where you're like your average person. If you don't have the access to hundreds and hundreds of gallons of vegetable oil, then there's no point in really doing it. I mean, if you got like, man, I had a fish fry, and I got 5 gallons of oil over here. I'm like, I'm going to make me some biodiesel. No, that's not going to happen. I'm lucky that the business that I'm in, I own a pressure washing company, and I clean restaurants all over Central Illinois, everywhere. So I get all my waste vegetable oil from my restaurants.
Nice.
So I think I got frustrated just like probably everybody else that does. I mean, if you go on Marketplace, you can find biodiesel processors on there, pretty reasonable. But then again, it comes down to getting your product, getting your chemicals to do it. And it takes a lot of trial and error to get it perfected. I mean, perfected. So I got away from doing that, guys. I just got down to where I built my own giant filtration system. I just take the waste vegetable oil from my restaurants. I pump it through my filtration system, through a centrifuge, get the water out of it, bam, throw it in the truck and go.
Now, what's that process like? So I understand you get the oil, you still have to filter the oil, all the debris, grease, water, particles from the deep fryers and whatnot. But what kind of engine are you running this in, and what was some of the prep work on that motor or that platform to allow you to be able to use just straight vegetable oil?
It's easy, man. You buy a diesel and you pump it and dump it. That's what you do.
Okay.
I don't care, man. I've been doing this for so long. I mean, everybody's got their own quirks and their own, bad scenarios and stuff like that. But I will say this: 99.9% of everybody's issues with using just regular straight waste vegetable oil in their engine has been human error of not filtering it correctly. You have to filter it right. You have to do it right. I've heard people say like, oh man, it ruined my injectors. It did this. Well, I'm going to say no, man. I'm going to say you probably didn't get all the water out of your oil, and you probably had suspended water in your oil, and that'll ruin injectors like nobody's business.
Yeah. Now, with
you guys want go ahead.
No, you go on.
I filter my stuff down past 10 microns. And I used to build heated tanks. That's why I love like the Powerstrokes, the old OBS trucks with the dual tanks.
Yeah.
So I would take the rear tank out of the truck, me and my son, and he was like 14 at the time we started doing this when I started doing it with them. And we would take the rear tank out of our OBS truck, cut it out, take stainless steel pipe it in as a heat exchanger, hook it up to our heater core lines. So we build a heated tank basically, and then have a 2-tank setup. The front tank would be on diesel. The rear tank would be on vegetable oil that was getting heated with the truck. So you'd start the truck up on the front tank with diesel, let it warm up. The rear tank would get warm, flip over to vegetable oil, and just drive on, man. Just drive until you're ready to come home. Switch back to the front tank. The whole entire system would pump all diesel fuel through it. And you're ready to rock and roll, man, for the next morning.
That is wild, because that addresses the big major concerns. When you said Central Illinois and running waste vegetable oil, hey, we're a couple hours from you. I get it, but it still gets cold in the winter. We still see sub-zero temperatures. We get, foots of snow at a time.
So I got away from doing a heated tank. I found a different alternative, man. And you guys might be like, no way, and some people are like, this is crazy. But with those temperatures like that right now, I'll do, when it starts getting below freezing, I'll do 10 gallons of vegetable oil to 1 gallon of gasoline. It sounds crazy, but it thins it out. It thins it out just perfect and burns just as clean as can be. I call it the smell of free, guys.
Now, on these engines that you're doing this on, I know you mentioned a couple Powerstrokes, but all of these are older mechanical injected engines. None of these are like the newer common rail style engines, correct?
Correct. And then I don't know much about like the Cummins or anything like that. I really wish I had the free time to kind of dive into the Cummins stuff, but I've got a couple buddies that do, and I guess there's like an eye in there that can read in case you put like off-road diesel in, and it'll shut them down, and just the parameters of all the electronics with all the newer diesels and stuff. I don't really know too much about it. I can't really jump out there and say like, yeah, man, take your new 6.7 Cummins and dump the vegetable oil in and go. I have heard like through different forums that people say that the 6.0s run great on it. I think in my own personal profession of doing this for a very long time, I'm a firm believer that as long as you filter your vegetable oil down and keep it thin, every diesel will run on it. Every diesel.
Can we talk a little bit more about that filtration process? You said down to 10 microns. I know we run fast. Lift pumps are what, 3 microns?
5 micron, 2 micron, depending on the filter.
So we get some variation in that. What does your filtration process look like? Are we talking about like industrial level equipment that you had to like custom build to get the filtration down? Does it have to be heated when you're actually doing the filtering process? Does that tend to matter?
It does help for sure. I mean, especially when you're running through the centrifuge. Again, that comes down to how creative and how much you can build yourself, or you can just buy all the stuff, and just piece it together. Since I'm in the restaurant industry and service, you guys know those great big tanks that restaurants have, like you've seen at Hardee's and stuff like that, where the grease truck comes up and pumps the grease out. Well, I picked up a grease pump from like the fryers at one of my restaurants. The guy's like, I don't have it. I have no use for it. I was like, well, dude, I'll trade you, So I trade him for this pump that pumps the vegetable oil. So I got my pump for, just trading some work for it. From there on, I went to Menards and got my piping and put it all together. My first setup is a sediment filter that can flush. It's just a screen filter, a mesh filter. It flushes. If I just put the valve, it'll back flush itself. It cleans the screen off. From there, it goes to a 60 micron filter and then down to a 10 micron filter. I'd have it circulating in a 500 gallon tank. It just sits there and goes on a loop over and over and over and over and over. After I let it do that for a while, you got to change your filters. You just can't expect it to sit there and run and be like, you never have to change your filters. You got to change them. And after that, it's not ready to go in. After that process, I cut it off from the filters, just a bypass, just put the lever. And from there, it goes through a heater. And my old system, I used you guys know how like a hot tub setup, how the water will come in and go through like an electric heater, almost like a water heater.
Yeah.
Coil and come out. I just used one of them, guys. I just plumbed it into one of them and wired it up and said, sham wow, man, there it goes. Look at it go. From there, it goes to the centrifuge. And the centrifuge I bought, it runs off of my motor, my pump. It runs that right at 90 PSI. And it just bypasses, it goes back in the tank. All the bad stuff stays in the centrifuge. The water gets separated from it. And it's ready to go. Set it and forget it, man. Guys, it's simple. It's cake.
Well, a veteran doing it for 16 years, I would assume so. You're making it seem super simple.
No, well, if you're a DIYer who's creative and has the ingenuity to kind of look at this stuff and then some of the access to be able to say, hey, I already work with restaurants, right? So you have that feedstock supply. You have somewhere to get it from where it makes sense.
But there, it's no difference than like a lot of guys use black diesel, man, black fuel, just motor oil, and mix it with some hydraulic fluid and go from there. I put transmission fluid in my waste vegetable oil, just mix it all around and send it.
Have you ever used engine oil in this process, or you haven't really used that as a source?
I have not, because I've done a couple test batches of like mixing used motor oil in with the vegetable oil, and it doesn't look like it's going to come out very good. So I just try to keep them separated. Have I ran a motor off of the waste motor oil? No, I have not. The only time I take that back. I guess I kind of did, but it was a kind of accident. I used to work at a gravel pit, and I'm going to make this story short, but I've never worked on a gravel pit in my life. Didn't know a damn thing about cranes or engines or anything. I was like 16 years old, and this guy's like, "Oh, you run the plant now. You do this, you do that." I was like, "Dude, you're turning me loose to something I don't know what the hell I'm doing at all." Well, next thing you know, this crane was a runaway, guys. It like broke one of the oil lines in it, and it was just pumping oil straight into that turbo. And this crane was it was the most loudest, most craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And my manager guy just stood there like, "Oh, that damn thing will blow up. We'll just pull the engine out of it again." I'm like, this is nuts. This is a bunch of crazy people, man. But that was the only time I've ever seen one run on, waste motor oil, and it was a runaway.
Yeah.
Actually put it in my tank and drive with it. No, I have not, but I don't see why it wouldn't run.
Yeah, run. Well, and I guess run is usually not the main question, right? Like we all know the story. Like diesel works on compression, so if you compress it hard enough and it can explode, it'll explode. That's what diesel is.
It's more or less the longevity, the reliability. Yeah. What's that look
Gaskets,
like long term?
seals. What does that stuff look like running filtered waste vegetable oil? Because you've been doing it for a long time on just the WVO. Have you had any issues with lines, gaskets, rubber, seals, anything like that?
I personally have not. I mean, and 7.3s are my go-to. That's what I've been running them on for quite some time, along with my NPR, my Isuzu. I have an older dozer, an Alice Chalmers, and it's got a 2-cylinder, 2-stroke Detroit in it, and that thing loves it, man. It smells like I'm cooking fish out there while I'm pushing dirt. I mean, it's crazy. like Lawson's got a fish fry going on 24/7, But I've heard people say the vegetable oils had issue with like copper seals and stuff. I have not. I mean, I've got the banjo fittings on my Isuzu, and they've got them copper seals on there. I have yet to have any issue with them at all. I do know this: running waste vegetable oil in any diesel, with every diesel I've ever had, it cleans the fuel system out all the way down to the valves. You tear them apart, and they look like they're brand new.
That's interesting. Wow. That's something else that I know that the others had kind of told us that they were like, hey, if you're going to run biodiesel, this it does actually work as a fuel system cleaner.
Like a detergent. I mean, that's pretty much what it does.
That's interesting. Do you think there's any drawbacks to running WVO?
Just not being able to get the mass amount of supply, for other individuals. No, and you know what? I mean, if you think about it, Adolf Diesel, I mean, the first diesel engine he ever ran off of peanut oil. I mean, that's the way it was started. And if you look at like other countries across the world, I mean, even like third world countries and stuff, they all have diesel engines for everything. Everything they have is diesel. And I wish our market over here was like comparable to theirs. I mean, they got boat motors that are diesels. They got babysitters for their kids that are diesels. I mean, it's crazy all the diesels they have over there. But they run them on alternative fuels all the time because it's just cheaper to them than trying to chuck in diesel fuel, especially the way diesel prices are. It's insane.
Yeah, I know it was $5 a gallon when I was driving in this morning, $4.99, whatever it gets.
Saw it dip a little bit the last couple weeks and pop back up. Yep. So it's like, damn.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes this topic such a refresher for people to kind of look at again. I know when we were talking with some of the other guys who are more on the DIY side of things, they said this market's pretty much died and dried up as far as like an enthusiast market. Maybe there's still some hardcore guys hanging on. They're like, but you can see a contraction since the last time gas was $4 a gallon plus, right? So,
I mean, again, oil supply, I mean, that seems to be the common theme here with everything. So.
Yeah, it's a drive, right? I mean, to me, the attractive thing is like, because we're pretty sure we're not going to get better performance. We're probably not going to get better fuel mileage, quote unquote. We'll get lower cost per mile to drive. if we can get that feedstock down to a low enough price. And then
access
I love
methanol.
the idea. I love the idea of running just the filtration system. That seems to me like very appealing. Of like, yeah, I might have to invest some money into it, or I might have to invest a weekend into building something or designing something and putting it all together. But once I have it, it's built. Now I only have to worry about feedstock each time, like you said, not tracking down methanol for every batch. I don't even know what that looks. Honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start to go find methanol in Northern Illinois. Anyways, where we're at, I'm sure I could Google it.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it at like any race shop and everything like that, but you're not really being all. You're micromanaging your cost savings when you start looking at it like that. I mean, you're like talking about energy usage and of electricity running your pumps for a day, along with your cost of your methanol, and then your sodium hydroxide, and then your time also, all that to do that. It's just more of an easier fashion just to pump and dump and go,
Yeah.
That's right.
That's your motto.
That's how I got 2 kids.
Oh, that's so good.
But this is one of those that I think if we have the listeners that are running and maybe even like some of the older stuff, right? That's around that 7.3 era. That's all prior to common rail.
Mechanical injection, TDI motors, that we've talked about. The older 12-valve Cummins, the 7.3s of the world. That's really where this ties in.
That's
nicely.
where this can live and die.
And you got to think, like the 95 and ups or whatever, or the DI Powerstrokes, so that's a Huey system and stuff. So you're still dealing with, high pressure and electronics and stuff compared to like the older 7.3s or the 6.9s or the IDIs, where everything was mechanical on them completely, but the 5.9s and everything, that's all mechanical all the way up through whatever year they started, putting all the major electrical stuff on them.
Right.
I mean, you even look at like some of the old Mercedes diesels and stuff. People have been running alternative fuels in those for God knows how long.
Yeah, many years.
That's what I saw. There's a guy, in the town our shop was previously in that ran old Mercedes on veggie oil.
Yep.
And yeah, they loved it, So it's something that we've heard good results from.
My goal in life is I'd like to find a cruiser, like a 30 or 35 foot big cruiser, and put a pair of 4BTs in it and vegetable oil that sucker, like do the loop. You guys know what the loop is, from the Mississippi all the way down. I like to see how far I could go on it. And if it breaks down and it doesn't work, I'll just sell the damn thing or sink it and just move on.
That's so much fun. Brandon, if you had advice for somebody who's out there listening and they're thinking about getting into biodiesel or waste vegetable oil, what advice would you give to a newbie?
Don't be afraid and don't get frustrated. Just get in and do it. You're going to have a lot of troubles and you're going to learn a lot. I mean, if you asked me if we did this 16 years ago, I'd be like, to hell with this shit. No way, man. No way. It's actually so simple to do once you figure out the little flaws in it here and there. There are little flaws, but I guess that's with everything. Just don't get frustrated. My biggest hill I had to get over, guys, was the first time I pumped that shit into my truck. And actually,
and the what if factor.
Man, the what if factor. I was going goose hunting and I was like, this is so stupid, man. I'm gonna break down. This is gonna be miserable. Then I gotta pull my tank and everything. Guys, I flipped the switch and drove on. I was like, all right, now this is pretty cool. Like it didn't even miss a beat. It just kept on driving. So after that, I was hooked, man. I was completely hooked. I wish I would have, personally, I wish I would have kept like a data log on how much savings I've had for doing this for so long. I think that'd have been really interesting and to have a compare of what diesel prices are, through the years. And that would have been kind of neat, but I'm too far along to do it now. So.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or a plug to?
I don't know, off the top of my head, man. It's just I appreciate you guys giving me the time and the interview and stuff. If you want to try something, go to the grocery store, buy a couple gallons of vegetable oil. Just go dump in the truck, man. Just dump it in your tank and drive. Just try it.
That might be the craziest thing ever said on the show.
I think we do with one of your
I
vehicles.
can't handle it. I think you have the perfect truck to try it on. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon. That was awkward as fuck, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
You did a nice job there.
I got it.